Hi, Dean.
Sorry. I've got to do something on my share screen.
Ah, it is. Good evening, Tony.
Good evening. I thought I'd better be a bit sharper tonight.
Yeah, actually, I meant to say to you guys, I got a request from one of our group. I won't name any names, but they're finding. No, we're okay. Finding that 2 hours is just a bit too long for these meetings. So, yeah, do you think we could keep this to an hour and a half, or is that pushing it?
No, I mean I can rattle on. It's not a problem. I mean, you know, I mean the thing is, I think
people are getting Zoom fatigue. To be honest,
strangely enough, I rather enjoy these meetings on Zoom. In some respects, I think having presentations on Zoom is more successful than doing them as a group. You know, in person, because actually we all get the whole thing on the screen.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there are some benefits. I think where I'm not so keen on Zoom is just a general conflab type thing. I think then it seems a bit sort of a bit more strained, I suppose.
I think it's interesting. I think, you know, Zoom fatigue is a good phrase, actually, Ray.
Yeah.
But I think some of us, you know, get 3 or 4 a week, and you think I'm just bored looking at this bloody television, you know. Sort of. I went to the optician actually the other week, and they said, "Well, are you looking at the computer more?" And I thought, "Don't be honest, because yes, you are." Like huge amounts, really, isn't it? Oh,
I mean, the amount I look at it, I mean, when I was working, you know, I was using them all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised I'm not blind, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. Incidentally, thank you for introducing me to Brian.
Yes, he's very good.
Yeah, well, I'm going to pick it up tomorrow.
Yeah, I believe you sent him the low resolution version.
Oh, he totally buggered the whole thing about and decided it was no good, and he was going to redo it, which is great. You know, it'll look much better.
Well, I mean, you need to go on, you know, your best quality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good evening, James. You're looking very serious.
Not too bad. How are yourselves?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Looking forward to this tonight.
You must. Well, I think I'll soon dampen that down.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
How are we all?
Hey, okay.
Very good.
Good.
So have we all been jabbed, have we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We all have.
Yeah.
I've been jabbed and I've had my 3 weeks.
Yes. Us too. I think we're the same. I think we're the same age, Tony.
Oh, couldn't believe for 1 minute you're as old as I am, Linda.
I can assure you it is true.
Oh, you smoothie.
Well, I don't know. Ray says your assurances are worth nothing.
When was your big birthday, Tony?
Oh, it was a while ago. It was last year.
That was mine.
Yeah.
So was mine.
September.
Oh, I'm older than you. I'm August.
Yeah, mine was the year before that.
Well, I'm older than both of you, and I was June.
I'm quite old.
Question is, which big birthday you're all talking about, you know?
21.
Well, exactly. That was a couple of years ago, but not that long.
I mean, the only good thing about getting older, isn't it, is my memory's so poor now. Everything's fresh.
Yeah.
It's marvelous, really.
Yeah, I learn something new every day. It's the same thing.
Well, you're bound to. I mean, mine is reading my name on the piece of paper.
Bloody hell. Are we on the right Zoom? Is this the Evergreens?
Yeah.
No, I think so. It must be that we're the only people who've got the time for photography or Zoom sessions or something like that.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I realised I've done hardly any photography at all, so I popped over to the Milton churchyard before the snowdrops went over, and I was quite happy with my results, but I haven't done very much this year at all.
I don't think any of us have, to be honest. I mean, it's sort of, I don't know about you, I just don't have the enthusiasm to get out and do it. It's not
No.
just,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it is that thing. Like we go out for a walk and such like, but I don't go out to go photographing things. It's sort of,
Mm.
yeah.
I feel a bit sort of, I don't know. It's pretty unreasonable because I mean, it makes no difference, does it really? But I mean, for some reason, I feel,
It's something psychological, definitely.
yeah,
I went over to Hidcote the other day and got a whole lot of photographs of things like the crocuses and snowdrops, and I got some lovely ones of bees on crocuses, but unfortunately I can't put them up on the screen because I don't know how to. So I have to come from advice on that one.
well, we'd love to help you, James, but of course we can't come round.
I know. I can sit out in the garden if you want.
Yeah, you know.
We can talk you through putting it on the screen. It shouldn't be difficult.
Does that still apply if he's offering you a beer, Tony?
I think it would cost me several, I think.
Evening, Jean.
Okay.
Hi, Jane.
See, I like Jean because I don't think Jean's going to criticise my presentation.
Have you not seen the sign language you come with?
I shall look away.
Gosh, we've all gone quiet.
I was
Yeah.
going to
I don't
say,
like quiet. I don't like quiet.
What are we doing?
10 people. That's more than normal.
Yeah, good. Well,
go for it.
Do you already get going?
Go for it, Tony.
All right. You'll now have another 10 minutes while I actually get myself sorted out. Here we go. Right. Can you see that? Is
Yes.
anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Jolly good. Well, you may guess that it's beginner astrophotography, and it's of course it's by me, so it's for beginners by a beginner, and so it might be slightly disjointed, but I'll do my best. The first of all is, well, what is it? I mean, basically, it's not really worth making too much of a big deal about. It's just another genre of photography, the same as macro has its own special considerations, and landscape, so does astrophotography. And I mean, it's generally regarded as any picture that includes the night sky, but that actually is, that's what you generally get. But to be honest, it also can include the daytime sky. You can take pictures of the moon in the daytime, and of course the sun is a celestial object, although you need to be a bit more careful, a bit more specialized in doing that. So there are things in the daytime, but it's mostly dusk and nighttime pictures. And there are certain sort of characteristics about it. I mean, the first thing is that it's not one of those things that really you probably want to rush, because actually, if you go out and look at the night sky and you go straight out of your back door and look at it, okay, you see some stars. If you let your eyes adjust for 15 or 20 minutes, it's amazing how much more you see. I mean, you must find that when you walk around at night, you start to see an awful lot more detail. And the fact is that any picture you tend to take in those circumstances is in very low light levels. And it's also, because stars themselves are point sources of light, it's quite obvious when your focus isn't very good. So you need to be quite careful. If you want the picture to look decent, certainly focus is critical. And the other thing is believe it or not, the sky moves. Well, the earth rotates, really. I mean, everything's moving. And so that can limit, if you're not using any kind of tracking device, how long an exposure you can take. So it can be quite limiting. And also because, at the different times of year, different things are at their optimum in the night sky. You need to think a little bit about planning ahead more often than not. I mean, sometimes you can just go out and grab a lovely sunset, or you see the moon and it's looking good. But really, if you start to look for more detailed things, a little bit of planning goes a long way. And the other thing is, even in the summer, and I found this, even if you go out on a summer's night and you're out there, perhaps because it doesn't get dark till quite late past midnight, it's surprising how blooming cool it is. And it's, you know, you might as well be comfortable. So I think a bit of warm clothing, and thinking about that. You also, once you're out there, you don't really want to be flashing around with a torch too much. So a red light is excellent because it doesn't ruin your night vision. And obviously you're going to have longer exposures. I mean, you all know that. And really, what are the categories? Well, these are some, I looked at, you get competitions and you can see that there's just, you know, anything and everything. And there are two, I suppose, basic approaches to this kind of photography. One is that you take a kind of scientific approach in that you take a picture of what is there and you make the best of it in terms of composition and actually bringing out the details and such like. And the other one is actually treat it very much as an artistic type of thing. And you might wish to take things out and put things in that aren't there to provide artistic effect. And the last thing is, the last one there, robotic astro images, is that actually you don't need a telescope. You don't even need a camera, because these days you can get on the internet. And if you want to take a picture of something in the southern hemisphere, you can literally log into a telescope in Chile or in Spain or various other places, and you can actually get it set up with the camera of your choice, and you can take your pictures remotely, download all the stuff at home and develop it here. And more people do that. And you're right, some people regard it as cheating, but actually, you know, if you think about people perhaps who are disabled or lack mobility in various ways, who can't go out and set things up, it's actually not a bad way of doing things. And it gives you an awful lot more opportunities.
You got some links for that, Tony?
I mean, I haven't got them to hand, Ray, but I can dig them out for you if you want.
Yeah. Wouldn't mind having a look at that. Yeah. Well,
and yeah, I can tell you get some actually stunning, because you've got some cracking telescopes available online. The other thing is you can actually download NASA raw images and play with those. There's just so much stuff available. Anyway, what do you actually need? You need a camera, and really you need a tripod. And I wouldn't go for the tripod that's shown in this picture because it looks a bit flimsy to me. The more solid a tripod you use, the better it is. And then there's a whole raft of, you know, bits and pieces to make life easy. As I've said, you need warm clothing, a light or a torch of some kind, so it's tripping over, hurting yourself. Something to sit on. It's easy to forget that actually it's quite handy to sit down if it's taking a bit of time. Something that lets you know what's where in the sky. You can either get maps or you've got software which you can put on a pad. You need probably a remote shutter release, or you're going to have to use a self-timer, because actually if you press the button on a camera, even on a firm tripod, and you're taking a relatively short exposure, it will vibrate and it'll show. You don't need a prime lens. I mean, I'll show you some pictures I took with just a standard lens later on. But there's no doubt about it that a prime lens is so much easier to use, and they tend to be faster and you get better results. And if you're going to take pictures beyond that which allows you to take one on a fixed tripod, then you need some kind of tracker to allow you to track the sky so you don't get stars trailing all over the sky. And basically, well, what can you do with those sorts of bits of kit? Well, you can produce pictures like this, landscapes, and they're very, very popular. And that's obviously the Milky Way. And that's the sort of image that you might get in the summer, or I think that was taken in America. You can also get all sorts of atmospheric effects, noctilescent clouds. In the summer months, you get these clouds at about midnight up in the sky. They're about 80 kilometers up, and they're very fine crystals, ice crystal sort of reflective clouds. And they look quite pretty, and they sort of shimmer up there in the night sky. And obviously you get the aurora and all sorts of other things like that. You can do solar system images. But you've got to think, if you go using a standard camera and a standard lens, the moon's quite good. You can have a decent go at the moon. But if you start to look beyond that at the other planets, you'll get them really as points in the sky. They will be small. You need a telescope to find them. And the other thing, which I think a lot of people find surprising, is you can do the deep sky stuff. Now, in sort of astrophotography, deep sky is anything beyond the solar system. And this is a nebula. This was actually taken with a DSLR with, I think, something like a 400mm lens on the front. So a lot of these deep sky objects are actually quite big in the sky. They're more than a degree across. Some of them are 3 degrees across. And actually using a camera and a relatively modest lens actually puts these things into perspective. And I think gives you, at times, a better impression than actually using a large telescope. And what can you use? Well, you can use any damn thing, really. We've all got mobile phones, and actually a lot of the more modern ones have got very impressive nighttime modes on them, and can take really quite decent pictures, actually. But mainly they're going to be wide angles because, that's what they're built for. The DSLR, which is the thing I'm probably going to concentrate on the most, is actually the most fantastic piece of kit. I thought they were good, but ever since I've tried starting to use planetary cameras and specific astro cameras down below, I can tell you what the DSLR does for you is pretty cool. It just takes an awful lot of the hassle out of taking pictures. Having said that, it does have slight restrictions, which you can get over by using specialized planetary cameras or astro cameras, and I'll talk about those a little bit later on. But generally speaking, you're going to need a telescope and you're going to need a computer to drive them. And that can be a bit of a clack because you ended up needing power, and that restricts you. There is really, these days, not such a large gap between professional astronomers and amateur ones. And the reason for that is the availability of the modern sensors, CCDs and CMOS sensors like we have in our cameras. In the 1990s, only the professionals really had access to these things, but now we all have, and they're relatively cheap. Now, you're not going to produce a picture like Hubble because we don't live in space. But there is, in many ways now, a movement towards taking a more simple and a more portable approach. Because if you've got a DSLR, it's self-contained and it's got its power, and you can also, have a little sky tracker which will fit on your tripod, and that just runs off its own batteries, and you can have a remote release or an intervalometer, which I'll chat about later, and you can put all these things in your pocket or on your back, and you can walk to wherever you want to take your picture. So it gives you an awful lot of freedom. And the other answer is that actually suddenly you take deep sky pictures which are very much in context. And this was taken with a DSLR, not by me, I hasten to add. I'm quite anything quite that good. But here you've got Orion or Orion's belt. You've got the Orion Nebula down here. You've got the Flame Nebula there, the Horsehead Nebula there, and this is Barnard's Loop, which is actually very faint and is the remnants of a supernova explosion. So, you've got the whole of Orion there and what's going on, a huge amount going on in the Orion constellation, all in one picture. So, I think sometimes less is more. And obviously there are umpteen ways of taking your pictures. As I said, you can have your camera on a tripod. You can put a small tracker between the camera and the tripod and it'll then track the sky. You can also go for afocal photography. And whilst I said that you can probably only get, generally speaking, wide angle views with a mobile phone, basically you can get these little devices like the one that's shown there that clips onto the eyepiece of a telescope. You slide your phone into it, get it adjusted so it's nice and square, and press the button. And what you get then is actually quite nice photograph of whatever it is you're looking at on a telescope. And the advantage is you can then send it to people pretty much straight away. You could do the same thing with a DSLR. The issue is you've got to hold it very precisely in order to actually get it. But basically you just let the thing go on auto and it takes the picture for you. So you can save yourself a lot of bother. And you can also use a spotting scope, of course. if you want to do wildlife stuff, you can do exactly the same thing through a spotting scope. Or if you want to go to the ultimate, you can attach it to a telescope, either by having it bolted on the back, which is with an adapter like this, or as I've done sometimes, is if I've been looking at things through with a telescope, I literally clip the camera on the top of it and just use the standard camera and lens, but the telescope does the tracking for me. So that, you know, there's umpteen ways of doing it. One thing that is useful to think about, which I learned the hard way really, is it's so much easier to get everything set up before you go out in the dark. It's all very well saying, get to know where all the buttons are on your camera. And I assure you, I do know where all the buttons are on my camera now, but I found out the hard way by pressing the wrong ones constantly and finding it wasn't doing what I thought it should do. But it's much easier if you do what you can before you go. You're going to have to use your camera on manual, basically, for virtually everything. You want the camera on manual, you need to set it for manual focus. You certainly don't want the stabilization on, because it's probably going to be sitting on a tripod. And I would suggest you turn image rotation off. I mean, not that it's a serious problem, but actually it is a bit of a pain when you're trying to focus, because what happens is you end up, if you end up trying to do live view focusing, which is generally speaking what you've got to do, it actually reduces the size of the image on the screen if you've got it in portrait. So if you turn it off, you simply don't suffer from that. You should take your images in RAW for the best results. But I mean, you can actually do virtually all of the processing with high data sets of, the sort of most detailed versions of JPEGs that you can take. But you do lose detail from a JPEG. You don't want the white balance at auto because it'll keep changing, and that'll be a bit of a problem. And don't have the camera powering down after a minute. It's a bit of a pain. So just set auto power to off. In terms of long exposure noise reduction, it's kind of, you can leave it, put it on, or sometimes it's much more efficient not to have it on if you want to take a series of pictures. And you'll probably want to use a remote release or use a 2 or second delay to try and cut down on any blur. So you're going to take the picture. Decide on what you want to take a picture of. I'll show you Stellarium later on. It's by far not the only planning program you can use, but it just gives you an idea of what they do. I'll show you that in a bit. As I said, you want your camera in manual mode, and you probably could go for just some starting settings. It's fairly common to have the ISO around between 800 and 1600. You want your aperture pretty much wide open. You can obviously work out what your maximum exposure length can be from the 500 rule, or you can make it 300 rule for APS-C sensors without trailing, and put the focus round to infinity. And as we know, infinity on the focus is not actually where infinity is. So you then need to manually focus. And the views, if you're looking at stars, they're too dim for the autofocus to work. And they're actually too dim, generally speaking, for you to be able to focus on them accurately by looking through the viewfinder. And the get out of jail card here is to use live view on your camera. And I think most cameras have it. Just point it at a bright star, the brightest star you can see, in fact, or the moon, and then effectively focus it whilst looking at the view, the live view. Starting with it just as it is, then wang it up to 5 times or whatever it will go to, and reduce the size of that star again to the smallest you can make it, and then up to 10 times, or if you've got the new RA, you can go up to 30 times. And again, keep refining that focus until you've got it as sharp as you can get it, and then leave it alone. And often when you first look, you just see this vague sort of shadowy, fuzzy disc. But once you actually get near focus, suddenly the stars will leap into view, and you'll pretty much know that you're there. Obviously, if you've not got live view, the general way is to just take test pictures until you can see, but that's a bit laborious. So all you do then is you recompose to actually frame the view that you want of what you want, and then take a trial exposure, because probably you've not got the exposure length for the aperture oh, you got the aperture right probably, but the ISO probably isn't right. And then you play with the combination of ISO and exposure until you've got something that looks vaguely okay. Don't worry if it's a bit dim. They will be dim. And then you take your picture. And do you know what? You're now an astrophotographer. That's all there is to it. You are qualified. Now, there are things that can make what you get out of this better. And I have mentioned these little tracking mounts. As you can see, it's just something that sits on top of a tripod, bolts onto a tripod. Your camera then bolts onto it and it tracks the sky. And okay, they're not cheap, but then nothing in photography is cheap. And I can assure you that nothing in astronomy is cheap, but they're about £200. And what this will do is it will effectively allow you to change your exposure time from a few seconds in most cases to a couple of minutes. And that makes a huge difference to the result you get, because you can now reduce the ISO, and that improves the quality of the picture that you take. And also it means that if you've got a lens that perhaps is a bit, it's not the fastest lens in the world, well, it's okay. It doesn't matter so much now, because actually you've got the time to get the exposure in. And when you look at your results, when you get them back, you'll find that nearly all astrophotos are extremely underexposed by daytime standards. And a little processing, as I say, it goes a long way. This is just it's a trivial sort of example, really. But that's the Triangulum Galaxy. Obviously, I didn't do any of this. I nicked it off the internet. But you go from your original image, and this is a stack of many images. I'll talk about that in a minute. And you can do something that's called stretching, which I don't really intend to cover because that's another subject. But you can do it, and you've nearly all, I think you've probably all got Photoshop, and in Photoshop you can do this very effectively indeed. Lots of programs do it. GIMP will do it for free. But stretching is really quite an amazing thing. Suddenly detail starts to leap out at you. You need to be a little bit careful not to overdo it, but it's just a case of having a bit of a play and see what you can do. The other things that you can do to make life a lot more comfortable for yourself is that you can obviously drive your camera with a computer, or if you don't want to lug a computer and power supplies around with you, get a little thing called an intervalometer. Now, these can be quite expensive. The Canon one is about 150 quid, which I've winced about and hence I haven't got one. But you can get other ones that work perfectly well for, £18, I think £18 and up. And what this allows you to do is, because normally on your camera, you can only really use the interval timer up to 30 seconds. Beyond 30 seconds, you end up on a bulb setting. And the problem then is it's certainly on my Canon, is you cannot you can't repeat the shots. You take one shot, it takes one for 3 minutes, and then you have to start again and take another shot. With an intervalometer, you can set up the length of the exposure, you can set up the intervals between exposures, and you can set up the total number of exposures you want to take. And there is a reason why you may wish to take more than one. And the answer is you can plug that into your camera, into the normal shutter release socket, and you can go and make a cup of tea. It's absolutely marvelous. Astrophotography suddenly is great. You can go away, you can warm up, you can cuddle a radiator while the camera sits out in the freezing cold and does all the work for you. And it also allows you an awful lot more flexibility, because you can then have it taking pictures over really quite a long period of time. And you can do things like star trails, that thing in the bottom there. And you can, achieve an awful lot of other things. You can also put yourself in the picture because you're not worried about it. You don't need a 10-second delay. You can set a delay of minutes on this if you want to. You can go off and stand on a distant hillside or take a picture of it. So they're not particularly expensive, and they do free you up. Now, I did talk about other ways of improving the image. And one of the reasons why you might wish to take more than one picture is because your pictures are mainly of darkness, and the noise, the signal to noise ratio can be really not that good. But when you take a number of images and you then carry out a process called stacking, which effectively actually averages them all out, what happens is you improve the signal to noise ratio, because noise is random, but the actual things that you're taking a picture of are always there. And so what actually happens is if you take 4 pictures, it should reduce the the noise by a factor of 2. If you take 9 images, it should reduce the noise by a factor of 3. Now, it may not be exact, but you can see taking more images actually improves the signal to noise ratio. And the other thing you can do is take dark frames. And this is what your camera does when you put long exposure noise reduction on. What it does is it takes basically a dark picture immediately after the picture it's taken of the image that you actually chose to take in the first place. Now, if you just want to do 1 or 2, well, that's fine. But if you're sitting out there taking 2-minute exposures and you want to take 25 of them, and each one has another picture taken after it, which is another 2 minutes long, that's suddenly going to take you an awful long time. And the sky moves and stars go behind trees and all this sort of stuff. And so what it's probably more sensible to do then is not to use long exposure noise reduction, but effectively take all your image pictures to start with, all 20 or 25, whatever you want to do, and then simply put the lens cap on and leaving all the settings alone, get the camera to take a load more pictures. And it also means that when you actually average those dark frames, you get a much better image of the hot pixels, because what your camera is actually noting when you do this is that actually there should be no light reaching the sensor. But clearly what it's saying is you see little red dots on this black picture, and they are hot pixels. These are pixels that are malfunctioning in some way at that particular time for whatever reason. And what you do in the end is you subtract your dark frame from all your light frames, and hey presto, a load of hot pixels disappear. I mean, there are other things you can do, but that is probably the most powerful thing you can do to improve your signal to noise ratio and also get rid of random noise in your picture. And I did say you can enhance your picture. And there's absolutely loads of software. You've all got it, because you've nearly all got, I suspect, Lightroom and Photoshop. But if you haven't got that, you can use Raw Therapy and GIMP. And there's just huge, I mean, that's not just it. There's a huge amount of specialist software out there. And the 2 things to concentrate on are levels and curves. And I think that's what they're called in Photoshop. Am I right, Dean? Is it levels and curves?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, levels and curves.
So, I mean, I'm probably teaching mother to suck eggs and all of this, but I mean, what levels allows you to do is it changes your image from what's called a linear image, where you've got a whole range of brightness levels across your image, and you can make it concentrate in a particular area. And the way you do this, very simply, is when you look at levels, there are 3 little sliders. One on the left, one on the right. One on the left is the black point, one on the right is the white point, and the one in the middle is the midtones. And what you do is you get hold of that middle slider and you move it to the left. And do you know, an awful lot of stuff starts to appear in your picture. You want to do it in a number of stages because you can easily overdo it, but that is one of the basic ways of pulling things out of the background. And as I said, there's lots of free software. Some of it is incredibly powerful. But a lot of it's going to depend on what you want to do and what you want to use. And the other thing you can look at is curves. It does really the same thing as levels, but it's slightly more subtle. And what that allows you to do is deal with, you might say, enhancing the difference between light and dark in your image by putting S-curves into it and such like. And if anyone wants to know about that, I'm quite happy to tell them what I know, but you've got to remember, I'm a beginner and I keep getting it wrong. But what it can do is this. There's, and this was, I mean, I have to admit, this was not taken with a DSLR, this was taken with an astro camera, but it was just not long ago. That's the Orion Nebula. And on the left is how it looked, basically, initially. And by stacking a load of pictures, I think about 20, with a number of dark frames, and then doing a bit of stretching, you end up with what's on the right. So the effects can be pretty dramatic in terms of what you can pull out of a picture. And, you know, once you've started playing with levels, I don't know whether Dean and Ray play with them a lot, but you can't stop yourself, because now I do it on daytime photography as well. I have a fiddle with those. Having been a person who has actually shied away from using software and tweaking photos, now I can't blooming stop.
Got you.
Anyway, I thought I'd show you something that can be done with a DSLR. So I did this a little while ago, and this is with my 7D. It had my kit lens on it, which is an 18-200 zoom, and it is tracking the sky. It is bolted to the top of a telescope. And so you can see I took 10 30-second images. It's, as you can see, it's pretty much stopped down because it'd been f5.6, and I stopped it down another one to 6.3, ISO 200, and I was zoomed out at 200 millimeters. And it is because the kit lenses are a pain to focus because there's lots of stuff moving around in them in a zoom lens. But I mean, I think you can, the image on the left is actually a little bit of a lie. You could see a bit more than that, but when I JPEG'd it, this is what came out. Basically, you can see the 3 stars of Orion's belt and not much else. But once you've actually taken out your dark frames and done your stretching and some of your work with curves and reduce the noise a bit, you get this. And suddenly you can see the 3 stars of Orion's belt. You can see the Flame Nebula, a little bit of something up there. You've also got here the Horsehead Nebula. And, you know, this is just 10 30-second pictures. And if I'd have, you know, spent a bit more time on it, you could have actually pulled out a little bit more detail and perhaps got, you know, I mean, the Horsehead Nebula is very faint, but it just shows that you don't, you know, you can do great stuff with specialist kit, but you can do some quite pleasing pictures with just your standard stuff and your standard lens. And you don't need to spend a bomb like what I have. So pros and cons. I mean, phones are great because you've always got them with you and you might just see stuff. But mainly they're wide field views, but you can, as I said, do some afocal imaging. The DSLR is just a magnificent piece of kit, but it has 2 slight drawbacks for long exposure photography. First of all, the sensor itself isn't cooled. And so as you take these long exposures, the sensor starts to warm up. And this is particularly prevalent in the summer when it's pretty warm anyway. And also, because these CMOS sensors are very, very sensitive to near infrared light, they've actually got a filter in them. It would cause a lot of problems in the daytime if you didn't actually put this filter in. But the problem is the cutoff on the filter, believe it or not, is just slightly short of where most of the red in nebulae shines. So it sort of it doesn't cut it all out, but it starts to limit it. But having said that, I mean, they're fully featured, they're self-contained, and I think for what they do and the quality of what you get, they're incredibly good value actually. Planetary cameras. People who get a bit more serious about astrophotography, but still want to carry on with their DSLR, often end up getting a planetary camera. And the reason is you'll get frustrated trying to take pictures of the moon or the planets or solar system stuff with your DSLR. And the main reason is you get a huge amount of atmospheric blurring. And the way you get rid of this is that you have a very small camera. They're normally only about 2 megapixels and they cost about £200. So we're not talking about, again, huge expenditure, but you do need a computer to run it and you'll need a telescope to put it through. What you can do is you can take pictures of the moon and they look very blurry, but what you actually take is a high-speed video through your telescope or through a long lens, because you can bolt long lenses on the front of these things. And the blurring that you get in the atmosphere is actually statistically regular. It's a Gaussian distribution. And, you know, once you know what the distribution of how the image is varying, then you can get statistical software to unravel it and start to bring out the detail. Now, it won't necessarily bring out, you're not, if it's a really wobbly view, you can only get out so much, but you will get a tremendous amount of enhanced detail out of these pictures if you use one of these things. It is quite amazing to see it happen. And it's, again, certainly all the software I use is free. Some of this stuff is just fantastic. The people who wrote it done amazing jobs. So that's a planetary camera. It's not a cooled camera, but then you're not using it for long exposures, generally speaking. And I said they're cheap. Your Astro CCD CMOS camera, I mean, is a bit more serious. It's going to cost you the sort of price of a DSLR or something close to it. You need a computer to drive it, and you have to make all the decisions for it, basically. So it is more complicated to use. And of course you need power, but it's cooled. It means that you keep your sensor, say, at about -20 degrees, and that makes a big difference to the noise. You almost reduce noise, not necessarily to zero, but you virtually eliminate noise in long exposures. And you can take a 30-minute exposure if you want, because the sensor temperature won't vary at all. But you're into diminishing returns in many ways. If you're just after taking some nice pictures that you like looking at, it's probably not worth your while. But I'm fixated by this, so I've lost all reason. You don't have to listen to me. So I'm nearly there. So I'm trying to keep up the timescale. One of the things I thought it's worth saying is why plan? Well, the point is you need to know that what you want to take a picture of is visible. Can I see it from where I am? Where will it be in the sky? How can I frame it? Do I need to track it? And the other thing you need to think about is, where's the moon? If you want to take a picture of the moon, blooming great if it's there. If you want to take a picture of something else, no, it's not a good time to take a picture, because if the moon is bright or you've got bright street lights, it's very difficult to take pictures of dim things in the sky. And the other thing which you need to think about is, I'm going to be there a long time. Will my batteries hang out? And I'm getting even closer. There's absolutely loads of planning. Oh, can you hear a cat? Anyway, I'm sorry about that. There's loads of software out there, planning software. Much of it is free. A lot, I think probably there's more free for Microsoft than anything else. But you don't have to pay a lot. The two prime ones I would sort of point you towards are Stellarium and Sky Safari. They're both very, very similar. And, you wouldn't choose between them other than what was suitable for you. I mean, obviously, Stellarium is free, so I there have to have it. Okay, let's see if I can show you Stellarium. I need to reduce the screen here somewhere. How do I do that? How do I?
Escape. Let's escape.
Oh, there we go. Right, Stellarium. Well done. So this is Stellarium. It'll take a minute or two because I'm on my old laptop. I must get a camera on my new laptop. But when you get a new computer, right? So this is the night sky in Stellarium. It tells you where you're looking, and you can zoom in and out like that. So the nice thing is that you can go and find something. So if you don't know what you're looking for, you can have a look. So let's have a look for Orion. So, well, I know it's M42, but you don't know. You could put in Orion. Come on. And it goes and finds it for you. And then you can say, this is the bit that's useful for planning. Okay, there's Orion. What kind of view will I get with my lens and camera? And you can put on that. And what you can see, I need to just move this away. There we are. What you can actually see is that's the view. If I was using let's put 70 up. No, it's right, forget where things are. There you are. So there's the 7D, and it's looking through an 80mm telescope. It's actually 400. This is effectively a 400mm lens. And you can then say, well, does that frame everything I want? Well, how do I need to orientate my camera? And then if you want to try it with a different lens on it, with a 50mm lens, that's what I get. So what it allows you to do is it actually allows you to know where it is. You can have a look at the night sky. The other thing which you can do, which is quite useful, is you can decide what time it is. So if you want to look, you can change the date and you can change the time of day. So if you want to look a month ahead of time, well, have a look. Where will the moon be? Well, the moon, because you can see here, we're looking around, because the moon is now past full, it's fading away. We've got no moon and we can do that. So that's stellarium. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And that's it. I'm done. I'll stop sharing.
Very good.
That was good. Tony.
That was really good, Tony.
Was it all right? Because the trouble is, when you, because I know not everybody's interested in this. It's so you don't want to make it. But I mean, I'm fascinated by it, and I'm really fascinated now by how you can take this sort of underexposed, rather sort of, I don't know, modest sort of thing, and change it. I mean, there's a lot more you can do. I mean, I use a thing called Pix Insight, but actually, you've probably all got Photoshop. And do you know, when I actually spoke to somebody in our Chipping Norton group about how do I do this in Pix Insight, he looked at me as though I dropped off the sort of planet. He said, "Oh no, I use Photoshop, mate." And I can assure you, he produces some absolutely stunning pictures. Stunning. So all these tools are there. It just depends which ones you want to use, and how much you want to use them.
Tony, if you haven't got a tracker,
Yeah.
do any of the softwares auto align? So if you took, say, 20 shots, but it's moving,
Yeah.
would any of the software put those auto align it all up for you?
If you took fairly quick pictures, they would probably auto align. But these auto align programs, certainly the ones I use, because actually you always get a little bit of variation between your shots anyway, because actually things do move slightly. The tracker, any tracker you've got isn't perfect. And generally speaking, you will get these things that do star alignment for you. But they've got the limitations. And if it goes too far, it'll fail to make its match. So it's, if you're sort of looking at 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute exposures, when you're looking at quite dim things, then you probably are not going to get away with it without a tracker of some kind. But you don't need to take lots of pictures. People take single shots. Some people take a 15-second shot of the Milky Way and get an absolutely brilliant picture with the landscape in the foreground. That's a perfectly good astro picture. Then, no tracking involved whatsoever. It's just me. I make it difficult for myself. That's why I need trackers.
Oh, very good.
So I suppose we're down to what pictures have we taken, are we? I mean, I didn't know. I know because of your email, I don't know whether I'm supposed to be running this or not, Dean. I'm sort of,
yeah, go on, Tony. Carry on. All right.
Anybody want to show us any pictures? Who's taken any pictures or done something? You could even just talk to us and tell me you've done something interesting, because that would be novel for me as well.
I've got a couple I could show.
Oh, come on, Ray, go for it.
Right. What have I done with them? I'll find them here somewhere. There we go. You probably see this. This is my background at the moment.
That's nice, actually.
That's just looking out my window here. It was just the other night. Was it Sunday night? I think it was, and it was just such a beautiful evening. And this tractor was going up and down. Yeah, and I thought, God, that's a lovely photo. So I just stuck the camera out the window, and there it was. Yeah,
That's really good.
Nice.
Yeah. I tell you what, it's particularly good to see on a day like today.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I got somebody on Facebook come back and says, you've got a big garden. I went back to it and said, yeah, but the tractor helps. Yeah. Right. The other stuff I've been doing, because the Whitney group has had a still life competition, which we ran last night. But I was trying my damnedest to get something for this competition. So I tried various things. This is one of the things I tried. I'm glad I didn't now, because there was that many bloody entries with cameras in, old cameras. And the judge doesn't like to see things like photographs of photos. He didn't say anything about slides, but I suspect this might not have done too well. Just what I was trying to do here is that's my very first camera. I got that. My dad gave me that when I was 14 to take on a school trip. It's a Helena 35X. Still got it, obviously, and it was a fabulous camera. It's really robust. That's all metal.
It's a nice looking camera, actually, Ray.
Yeah, it's quite small. It's probably smaller than it looks there. But it's got it's all manual, of course, and you have to remember to cock the shutter before you hit the release. One of these is that old. But I took it on holiday and I got loads of slides. In fact, I still got those slides from 1964. Some of them, anyway. So I tried that, but I wasn't happy with this, and I didn't put it in the end. So I tried this. Now, the title for this is "Three of a Kind is Higher Than a Pair." And actually, I wish I'd put this one in now instead of the one I did put in, because it's as a still life, I suppose it's reasonable, but I decided in the end not to for some reason. So this is what I did put in, and I'll tell you what the judge said. Well, the flowers can go. You don't need the flowers, And what's that cloth doing there? And the reason that is because I started off with what he said, the three things, the container, the whiskey, and the biscuits, the shortbread. That's what I started with. And I thought, there's not enough there. It seems an awful lot of black space. Tell you what, I'll stick in the flowers. So I stuck the flowers in. I thought, there's 4 objects now. I need 5. It's got to be an odd number. So I thought, I know, I'll get this napkin and chuck that in. So, you go through all this, and then, you hear what the judge said, and you think, why the hell did I bother?
Well, what do they know, Ray?
He was very good, actually. He was very good.
Yeah,
It was good, yeah.
But what he didn't know is he says, I'd love that glass of whiskey. He'd have got a shock because it's Tetley's. I'm going to waste a glass of whiskey. I don't know.
You could have drunk it after you taken the photograph.
Yeah, but some of it might have evaporated. So that's it. That's all I've got, actually. So there you go. Just thought I'd show you those.
I knew when I was at university in Glasgow, I had a friend who worked for Jur's Distillery. He worked for the Customs and Excise, the revenue people. And he used to provide us from time to time with bottles of evaporated whiskey. The only downside, it was undiluted. It was 140 proof. Bloody good.
Did you say you worked for Jur's?
No, he worked for the company. He worked for the customs.
Right.
He was there. I said,
I used to work for Jur's.
Yeah, no, he said, my job is there to make sure that nothing goes wrong. So I thought, yeah, good.
I used to go to a guy that worked at Grant's, and he used to bring some of that stuff.
Exactly. Good stuff.
Clear in colour. It wasn't golden like whiskey. It was like clear, like vodka.
The gold colour only comes from it being in the barrel.
Yeah.
All right, should I go next then? I've got a few, nothing really made. I haven't done a lot of this stuff, I have to say. Do want that, do we? Let's see if I can find it all, because I forgot to prepare it this time. It's very unlike me.
Wychwood group.
I think, well, the only thing I've really taken is this lot. So there were a few, I did a couple of how did I take that shot?
Oh, yeah.
The Whitney group. Yeah, and this was, is that the shot? No. It's close. Hang on, let's see if we can find it. That's not it either. Or that. Or that. That's it.
Yeah.
So it was this shot. And I said, right, how do I do this? This is one shot. This isn't multiple exposures. It's not been into Photoshop at all. This is a moving subject and rear curtain flash, basically. And the white background is a light, a constant light. And so I took quite a few of these things. This is swinging in a pendulum way. It's a wind chime. I see that. And there were a few kind of this. And then I did like a rotating around the vertical axis. That's what that kind of looked like. And these shots are all these rotations. And you can see they're all different depending on the treatment.
That's fascinating, actually, because those are actually sort of like frequency plots in a way, aren't they? All these little wiggles, I assume, are actually like frequency, you know, as it's oscillating.
Yeah, it's a bit like a sine wave, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the design of the thing itself.
All right.
But yeah, so there are all sorts. And then I thought, well, I'll do something a bit smaller, a bit more colourful. So I nicked one of these off Louise. And in the process, I discovered that there was an awful lot of stuff in that cabin of hers. So I thought, well, we'll have that swinging from side to side, see if we can make a better job of it. And well, sort of all right. It's unpredictable, rear curtain flash, of what the exact results are. And you can see it's swinging from right to left, so you've got this kind of trail of blur as it swings through the exposure, and then the flash fires to give you this at the end. I didn't realize that was in this. So this is one of the entries for that still life competition, and the judge didn't like it because it's out of focus down here. But what he didn't realise is that this is taken out in the field with a macro lens and a ring light. It's handheld. This is.
Yeah, I remember when he said that. When he said, "Oh, you probably brought this indoors," and I thought, "Hey, bloody!"
There's frost all over it.
This lot would have melted straight away.
Exactly.
Yeah, no way.
It had to be bloody quick. Yeah.
You didn't like that either.
No.
It's out of focus at the back. No, well, never mind. My choices are. The other one's not in this file, but he didn't seem to like that lot.
Interesting that you and Lindsay seem to have the same reflective surface, though.
So say that again, I
said you and Lindsay seem to have the same reflective surface.
Oh, this is black perspex.
Yeah, but it's just that Lindsay had one. It looked just the same. You know.
Yeah, it works really well. Black perspex does.
Yeah.
Because if you can put that in the background,
yeah,
it works quite well. But yeah, no, I mean, he was a very good judge, and there were some very, very good pictures taken. I didn't agree with his choice of winner, actually, but I never do, really. I don't know about you, Ray, but everybody's got an opinion. It's like a thankless task being a judge.
Yeah, I did actually like that one. I did like that one. I also like the one with the lines.
Yeah.
The lines.
Let me stop. I don't have got anything else. No, I haven't done very much. Yeah, but I mean, some people go to an awful lot of effort, don't they? But
Brian just went.
Vegetables. I thought that should have won, but they do go to an awful lot of effort. I can't be bothered. But
what we didn't do as a club for this competition, we didn't give people sufficient guidance as to, for still life. And we ended up with a whole range of stuff. And a lot of that, strictly speaking, just was not still life. So we need to get better at giving people some guidance as to what's
still life actually is, yeah. Or what, and maybe what the expectations are. So, if it's expected it's got to be sharp back to front, then maybe we ought to say that.
Well, the problem there is, judges differ so much.
I know they do. One judge judging the same genre will have a different opinion.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's interesting. You learn all the time. You watch people, but the imagination that people have never ceases to amaze me. It's
some good stuff, obviously.
It's incredible. Why have you done that? It makes me feel a bit of a fraud. When I did those two, how did I take this shot? And it was in the lead up to this competition. I look at the photos and thinking, I'm preaching to people who know a lot more than I do. And it's because some of them are really good, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Some of them are amazing. But hey ho. Cool. Well, that's about it. That's all I've done. I haven't been out and taken any photos outside. Spring is just starting, so I'm on that next. But that's it.
Anybody else got anything they wish to show? Jean, you're on.
You're muted, Jean.
No, she's just like that.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Oh, it's Shipton.
Yeah.
Shipton green.
Well,
What was it?
White rather than green. Yeah.
I think we had enough snow to get 2 snowmen.
I like that as well.
What is that? Is that a crocus?
Crocus, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that look, yeah, I guess it must be coming up through the snow. Unless she's double exposed it, like the next one.
Very good.
That looks like
Coventry.
Coventry Cathedral mixed with some kind of street scene and
Looks a bit like Oxford, doesn't it?
somebody.
Yeah, definitely Coventry Cathedral.
I don't know where you found what was his name? Gollum. Was that Gollum down there at the bottom left? Maybe I did.
Yeah.
Looks like him.
See, it's clever that I can't do things like that. 3.
Three.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
There goes socially distanced.
I mean, that's a wildlife picture and a half, that, isn't it? How you get that? Phew.
But things have changed up there.
Oh, they're cool.
Well done, Jean.
Yeah. Thanks, Jean.
Good.
You need to stop sharing. It's at the top.
Up the top.
I can do it for you, I think. There you go.
Oh, right. Anyone else?
No.
No. I mean, I've got a few.
Go for it.
You'll
ahead.
regret this. I'm not sure all of these. Actually, for some reason, this blasted thing doesn't work very well. Just thought that was a nice sunrise I saw one morning. That's just taken from the bedroom window.
That's really nice, actually, Tony.
But that's I did do a more close-up one, but actually I think the wider angle works better. But it's like it changes so fast that by the time you've fiddled around, it's gone, isn't it?
It's
It's a
interesting.
great style to keep and use in other photos.
It's interesting because people would say you shouldn't have that. You should have taken out that electric line, but it does something somehow going across above the.
Yeah, it gets in the way, really, doesn't it? It tries every time I take a picture out of my bedroom window, that is there almost invariably.
It does. But it does something in that photograph to me. That sort
It's
of.
not too bad. I think it's because it's low down. It's not too conspicuous, is it? Right, Fred, I'll do this the hard. I won't show you the cats. I was quite pleased with the crocuses in our garden. You know, we've not sown a single one.
Lovely.
You'll notice we're not tidy gardeners, but you know, they've been a fantastic display. Really lovely.
Wow.
They're amazing.
I quite like this one because it just showed them against us what I call a more uniform background. I just think they're such pretty little things.
No, they don't last long, do they?
No, well, they don't. No, but
Well, the birds get them. Don't they?
I don't know.
Take care of them, anyway.
Oh yeah,
Right.
birds love them.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't a great picture, but I quite liked it. The sort of sense of motion, really.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
out of focus, of course, but you can't know everything. I'll just pop through these. This is a picture of disaster, really. I was taking a picture of the Rosette Nebula, I thought, but no, I wasn't. I was taking a picture of the bit of sky right next door to it. It took me 3 hours. 3 hours to take that picture. But it was chilly as well.
You're really selling this astrophotography stuff, don't you?
No, you know, I banged on about planning in my presentation. Well, this is all about not actually planning. I was a bit gash. And of course, some of these things you can't actually see when you're looking at it. But anyway, never mind.
When I'm looking at that, I keep hearing the Superman music theme tune in my head. I keep waiting for Superman coming out of the sky.
This was me getting ready for this present. I didn't show this one actually, but this is Orion taken with a 50mm lens. Again, just on the standard DSLR. And you know, again, there's the Orion Nebula. There's the belt. And it's amazing, isn't it, how much comes out. And I love the fact that you get the colour of the stars, which you just tend not to see visually. That's the one I think I used this one. Yeah, I did, didn't I? Oh, you've seen that.
Yeah.
That's
good, that.
And this is what was doing the work. And that's the astro camera on the back. There's another telescope on the top of the telescope with so when I talk about the planetary camera, that's sitting up there doing the guiding. It's actually looking at a star because the mount, whilst it's very, very good, can't, you know, we'll have small variations. You can get rid of those by having this thing look at a star, and it does it with sub-pixel accuracy. And it's also a planetary camera, so it doubles up. And it then feeds that back into the mount to keep everything centered. And it does work extremely well. And it's free software again. Absolutely fantastic, this stuff's about. And I just love I love free software. Okay, that's it.
That looks like an expensive piece of kit to me. Very good.
Sorry, there you go. Well,
So
expensive.
Yeah.
I tell you what,
That's telescope, Tony.
it's Skywatcher 80mm. It's a 400mm focal length, f5, and it costs just over £1,000. So it's actually about the same as a prime lens. So you could buy yourself a good prime lens for about the same amount of money. I mean, I think the thing is that up to about 400mm, you're probably, you know, a good prime lens will work very well with the camera. Once you start getting beyond that, the lenses get so big and heavy that you're probably better off getting a telescope and sitting it on a mount. That seems to be the general theory at the moment anyway, the general sort of view, I suppose. And one day I'm going to take a good picture with it and it'll make it all worthwhile.
Brilliant.
Sure.
Are we done?
That was really enjoyable, Tony.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it was.
You
You're
know,
a natural at this, Tony.
sorry?
We'll get you back. You're a natural at this.
Yeah.
Must be.
Yeah, very good.
That's you on the rota now.
Yeah, it shows I can only talk about one thing.
Well, you can tell us the next stage of it. Yeah.
Oh,
Tony, are you going to send around all those the presentation?
yeah. What I'll do is I'll PDF that and I'll send it to
Right.
you, Dean, if that's okay. Because I'm not sure I've got. Oh, yeah, I should have the distribution for everybody. I mean, if I see everybody on the email, then I'll PDF it and send it out.
Brilliant.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
really?
if you need anything, I mean, you know, the truth is I'm wildly enthusiastic about it, even if I'm not very good at it. And so if anybody wants to, you know, pick up on anything else, I'm more than happy to have a chat or, you know, whatever. Because as a topic, I absolutely love it.
No, it's been really interesting. I found it
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, it's really good. Really good.
That's very, very kind of you.
It's nice to see something totally different, actually, and not, you
Yeah.
know, got the same sort of
Yeah. And you notice that I talk about focus, but I don't practice it.
Sure.
Right. So who's next? Who's next up? Who's doing next month?
I think it was
Tony.
you, Ray.
I think I was thinking that. You know.
Yeah. It's your turn.
All right. I better think of something then.
I tell you one thing it did make me realise doing this is how much time you guys actually spend putting these presentations together, because it's surprising. You think you know what you want to do, but the actual fiddling of putting things together and thinking,
Yeah.
is that right or isn't
Yeah.
it? You know, it's surprising how long it takes you. I've forgotten. It's been years since I've put a PowerPoint presentation together, and you
Yeah.
just forget how much fiddling you end up doing and
Yeah.
moving stuff about.
7th of April, right? I'll think of something.
Anybody got any ideas what they might want? The subject you want covered?
Yeah. Any ideas?
No, you're gonna have to come up with something
This has
yourself.
gone quiet
Yeah.
again.
Okay, we'll see. We'll think of something. But if you think of anything, just give me send me an email.
All right.
Yeah.
I have a
But,
feeling there was something in the back of my mind, but I can't think what it is now. I'll have a if I can come up with anything, Ray, I'll email
All
you.
right. Okay. You see, from the 29th of March, you can meet outside with 6 people. So, you know, we might want to start thinking about doing, you know, little excursions out. If we organise ourselves properly.
Yeah, it's doable.
Will the bluebells be out by then?
No, they're normally May, aren't they?
Yeah,
Early May?
Yeah.
late April.
I thought
Yeah.
the 6 persons came in April, didn't it?
I'm just looking at it now because I was just wondering.
I thought it was.
Yeah,
I thought something like April.
We're going out on the 14th of April.
Yeah, no. On the 29th of March,
Right.
from the 29th of March, outdoor gatherings, including in private gardens of either 6 people or 2 households, will be allowed, making it easier for friends and families to meet outside. So that's from the 29th. And then from the 12th of April, what does it say? Yeah, it doesn't really. Wait a minute. Wider social.
Are you restricted to 2 households, Ray, or is it?
No, I think it's 6 people or 2 households.
Yeah,
Because the
6
2
people
households
or-
could be
it's
more than
like
6.
6 people or 2 households.
Okay, that's
It's
cool.
not very
So
specific.
if it's more than 6, it's 2 households. I see. Okay, got you.
There was one idiot minister on television the other day said, "Oh yes, you could have 2 households of 14 each," and I thought, well, that really is not sensible, is it?
No. I think that's the thing of sort of, you know, engage brain before mouth, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of them like that.
I suppose his point would be you've only got 2 risks. You know, it's like having 2 individuals together because
Yeah.
the household should be isolated in between themselves. It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get 6 individuals together, all from different households, it's a bigger risk then.
That's far worse. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we can have a look at doing something. I mean, I did have a chat with Henry Astor about going to Broomwood, and doing bluebells when they come out, and he sort of said yes, as long as there's not too many people, which kind of rules out Whitney group, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think he doesn't mind if it's local, but not kind of Whitney. So we could do it in 2 groups of people, couldn't we? I suppose if we were going to do that in April,
Yeah.
we'd have to kind of decide at the time when they come out and when what they look like.
I mean, the other thing is just leave it until after the 12th of April, and then things relax a little bit further. It doesn't really say from the 12th of April. It does say, what is it? Outdoor attractions. No, it doesn't.
They've left it very nebular, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really say. Right, certainly from the 17th of May, most legal restrictions on meeting others outdoors will be lifted. Although gatherings of over 30 people will remain illegal. Yeah, so, until the 21st of June, we're going to have to, there'll be some limitations.
Be nice though, won't it, to kind of all get together again? And Zoom's all right, but it's just not the same.
Yeah.
It'd be nice just not. I mean, at the moment, I seem to take all my pictures in the garden or just outside the garage. That's it. It's my 2 locations, and I feel I'm running out of any possibility of finding anything different. I'll have to start digging holes and taking pictures of worms in a minute. I mean, there's nowhere to go.
No, you could do a presentation on worm photography if you know.
Yeah. I could try and take it with some really expensive kit, couldn't I? That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. You done?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good to see you anyway, folks. Thank you for putting up with me.
Great
Thank you,
presentation.
Tony.
Well, thank you. That was
Thanks,
quite
Don.
refreshing.
Really good.
Yeah.
You've recorded this, Dean, I see. Yeah.
I have, yes. I'll send the link around when it's done. It's 3 hours worth of compiling and stuff.
It makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it?
Cool. All right, I'll do that.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.